Hello and welcome to another Battle Ready Minis painting tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how I paint my Platanenmuster or Plane Tree Spring camouflage for these German infantrymen. So to start with, the base colour for the uniform, I mixed saddle brown with sunny skin tone, which are both Vallejo paints. The ratio you want to use here is about 70-30 saddle brown to sunny skin tone. I think I originally did it a bit darker than that with maybe more sort of 80-20 with the brown to the sunny skin color, but it looked more accurate, I think, to the camouflage, but just not as it didn't kind of pop, right? Again, I've said this in some of my other camouflage painting videos. You need to walk the line between accuracy and not being too good at being camouflage, because then it doesn't stand out. Obviously, that's the whole point of camouflage. So it's a bit of a strange thing when you're painting it in miniature form. So this is my take on the Plane Tree Spring camouflage. I think it could be more accurate, but I think that this walks a good line between accuracy and still looking quite good from a distance on very small miniatures on a table. So you just want to paint all the areas that you want to be in camouflage. On these models, which are the fantastic Victrix models, the new 28mm Germans that they came out with recently, I'm going to do the smocks and the trousers. Some of them are wearing Zeltbahn ponchos, so they have arms sticking out, which you do in the kind of standard field grey. But this guy that I'm painting up today has just a full smock on. So all of this is going to be covered with this kind of mid-brown colour. I'm going to do the hood and the kind of collar on the inside. I'm going to do that white to represent the kind of reversible winter smocks. I know that reversible camo smocks were a thing even before the start of the Second World War, but they would have spring camouflage on one side and then autumn camouflage on the other side. I'm not sure when the just white snow camouflage came in. I'm not sure if they use this Plane Tree Spring pattern with the white snow reversible camouflage. Perhaps if you know more about this than I do, you can let me know, because I would like to know. But I think this is the sort of minor inaccuracy that you can probably get away with. I think the reversible white hoods make the models look nice. It creates some more contrast. It helps them to stand out. And I think, you know, that above accuracy is okay in some instances. Next, I use green grey, which is sort of a lighter version of the field grey with a little bit more green in it, obviously, hence the name. I use this for the gaiters, so around the tops of the boots. I also use this for the bread bag, the canteen, the mess tin, and the gas mask case as well. Again, I'm not sure exactly how accurate that was. I googled I looked at some reference images, and they all seem to be sort of kind of dark greenish, some a bit more metallic-y than others, some a bit lighter, some a bit darker. So again, I think that's something you can get away with just using all one colour just to save a bit of time. Again, it might look nicer if you went in with some different shades of green, maybe some metallics as well. But again, I'm trying to balance looking good with speed. And I think the camouflage is the main thing that's going to stand out, ironically, on these models. So that's what I'm going to spend the most time on. So I just do it all in this green grey colour in this case. I used Vallejo just field grey just to do the collars, because that bit of the uniform is showing on this model. I then took Gore Grunter Fur contrast paint, and I used this to do all the wood. So I used this to do the rifle, and I also used it to do the handle on the entrenching tool as well. I used Basilicanum grey contrast for all the leather straps. Again, looking at some reference imagery, there's a mixture of leather, some black, dark brown. I find this sort of darkish grey kind of reads as black leather, and again, stands out a little more. If you used completely black, it would kind of meld into the camouflage a bit much, I think. So again, slightly less accurate maybe with the greyish colour, but looks better and stands out a little bit. So probably better for painting, in my opinion. I use this for the ammo pouches on the belts, as well as just the belt and the straps. Next, I use Leadbelcher just to do the metallic areas. Any dark silverish colour would do. So this is just for the the gun barrel really. I didn't bother picking out any of the kind of straps and stuff really, other than the little ring on his back where the kind of Y of the back straps are. Other than that, I just left it all. I used a darker contrast paint, in this case Wildwood, darker brown I should say, to do the boots. I then took a warmer white, in this case Screaming Skull, and I went over the white areas, so the reversible hood, and I tried to pick out the little insignia on the collar as well. There's also some kind of threading, I guess you would call it, down the front of his uniform, the little X's you can see, and I picked those out with this as well. Here I took some brown contrast paint again. I think I used Gore Grunter Fur, so the lighter one, and I carefully picked out the chin strap of the helmet. This was a little bit messy and I went onto his face a little bit, so then I went back over and neatened up that line using my original base flesh tone, which I used Bugman's Glow by Citadel, which is a nice sort of, darkish flesh tone to start with. So now I've finished all the base tones, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start building up the camouflage pattern itself. I'm going to start with light green. I'm going to use olive green from Vallejo for this. And you're going to go around and you're going to just create lots of little splodges. You want to do some dots, because that's going to help with the pattern later, and some dots, maybe join them together with other dots to create these little round splodges. There's not too much to say about this really. Make sure you do all areas of the model relatively evenly. It might help to look at some reference material to inspire you with some of the shapes. The real key is don't do too much, because you don't want it to look more green than brown. You still want the brown to look like the base color, and also make sure that they're round, right? We're not doing splinter pattern, as I've said before, so you just want some nice round green splodges, basically. Finally, we're going to use a darker brown color. I'm using black brown, again from Vallejo, and we're going to do essentially the same as what we did with the green. We're going to go over and we're going to create these little rounded splodges and some dots. Some dots you can put inside the olive green splodges. Some dots you can put inside the green dots, but just not fully covering them. So you get a kind of double colored dot effect. And some of the splodges you want to just do in the brown areas. Some of the splodges I like to overlap with the green areas as well. And again, not loads more to say. Don't overload your brush because you don't want to accidentally over splodge. But yeah, just kind of be creative, dot them around until you think it looks nice, basically. Try and be relatively even, but don't overdo it. Again, you don't want this dark color to dominate too much. I'm going to come back now, and with the original base brown tone I used for the clothing, I'm going to do some more little dots. So some of these dots I'm going to put in the dark brown dots, some of them I'm going to put just in the dark brown splodges, some I'm going to put in the olive green, and it's just to create this kind of, I guess, interwoven effect, right? That all the layers are kind of mixed up, You're some green dots, some brown dots, some dark dots, some green splodges, some dark splodges, and then the lighter brown sort of base tone. And again, don't overdo this. I didn't do loads of this. Sometimes you do more, sometimes you do less. It depends on how it looks on the model. So kind of just let your eye guide you. Again, not being obsessive about historical accuracy and detail, but just want it to look nice, but also look like camouflage. Once I was happy with the distribution of the dots and the splodges and the camouflage, I just went back to highlighting the face a little bit. We are going to do a watered down wash to create some shadow and shade in detail, but I built up the layering on the face a little bit before I did that. So I took my Bugman's Glow, and I think I just used some skin tone from Vallejo to mix in with that to lighten it up a little bit, and just pick out, the higher areas, the knuckles, like I'm doing there on the hand, the edge of the nose, the chin, the cheekbones, and then do that again a couple of times with increasingly lighter layers. Here I'm using a very watered down wash of Agrax Earthshade, about 50-50, maybe even slightly more water than Agrax Earthshade. This is to create a nice shade in the recesses, but if you water it down, it means that you don't then have to go back and do loads of highlighting. I always used to just use full-on ink wash, Agrax Earthshade straight on, but then I would almost create too dark a shade and have to highlight it again. I found this is a really nice middle ground where you get that shade in the recesses, but it's nice and quick, and then you don't have to go back and do much highlighting afterwards. The skin tone ended up looking quite kind of yellowy or quite waxy, not very lifelike, so I went back in with some purple ink here to add a bit of colour. I also used some red watered down on the nose to create a bit of a flush, and I also used some blue on the cheeks to almost create a kind of 5 o'clock shadow kind of effect. I've found that using sort of colour washes like that very carefully, very watered down, very small amounts, can help really bring the face to life. Here what you can see is I've lightened up that original brown tone that I used, and I'm just trying to pick out some of the brown tones on the tops of the shoulders, on the helmet, to create a little bit of a highlight, even though I just said you didn't need to do that if you use the 50-50 wash. But I did this a very, very small amount, and again, I think this is a step you could probably skip, to be honest. I've also based the miniature already here. I wouldn't go into detail about how I do that here, but if people are interested, maybe I could make a different video on how to base things. I still say it's not my strongest area really, and it's something I'm trying to work on. I'm experimenting with some different products and stuff at the moment, so the basing's a bit of a work in progress. But as I've said, this video is about the camouflage pattern and how to paint it, so hopefully I've got that across. So here he is, our final finished soldier. I'm really happy with how this turned out in the main. I really like the camouflage pattern. These models are brilliant. They're really, really nice to paint. So I'm definitely going to paint up more of them in the future. Let me know if you want to see some different camouflage patterns or anything else. If you found this video helpful, please do comment on it, give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel because that really helps me out. And I will see you in the next one.